Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports on Opening Day 2020. Who is psyched about Opening Day 2020 more than me? I can answer that. No one. Absolutely no one. It's going to be one of those great days today. I know there's a chance of rain in D.C. That we can't control. What we can control is what we're going to do for about the next 45 minutes to an hour or so. We're going to talk about a lot of baseball. I think this is the best show I've had this year. Okay? Now, you may not agree, but we'll find that out, right? So, here we go. We're going to get started here. Let's see. I think everything's on. If I'm having any trouble, somebody let me know. How about that? I've got audio going. I've got video going. So for those of you that are in the chat room, if there's problems either way, Andrea, let me know. We'll try to fix everything. I think we're good to go. I'm not really sure, but at least I'm hoping that everything is on this morning. Okay? So here we go. Now, first thing I want to talk about this morning is Mookie Betts. And how about that contract that he signed yesterday? 12 years, $365 million. Oh, yeah. And so he signed through 2032. I guess one question would be, how many current Dodgers on the team now, the current roster, we'll even use the 30-man situation, will be teammates of Mookie Betts in 2032. I mean, 2032, that sounds like a long time away. And in baseball lives, we know it certainly is. But Mookie Betts secured it. You know, the great thing here, this story is incredible because Mookie Betts has yet to play one game that counts for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He'll get that opportunity this year, hopefully tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. They're going to play the Giants, and we'll see the debut of number 50 out in Tinseltown. But now he's signed, he's locked in. What will that do to the Dodgers? And what will that do for other free agents? I want to name three this morning. So the three I want to talk about is in order. Let's look at Realmuto, the catcher for Philadelphia. I'm talking about him first because with Realmuto, we've got Bryce Harper politicking already to say you need to sign him. Of course, he's already politicked, if you will, for Spencer Howard to be on the opening day team, and he's not. For Alex Rom to be on the opening day team, and so far not. But now he's wanting Realmuto signed. Now I think Realmuto will sign at a pretty hefty price because the fact is he's the best catcher in the game today. We'll see, though, does he get a $20 million a year contract? I don't know. The market is such in a state of we don't know. But we do know this. We know he's the best catcher. We know he's the only real top-line catcher on the market. Two other free agents this year that I think are notable are Marcus Semien, who's coming off a 2019 monster year, and, of course, Springer out in Houston is a free agent, World Series champ, a player at the top of the order, and a homegrown New York kid. So, the Mets, let's talk, the Mets have, it's another day, another story, but it's the same book. Injuries. So they're already missing out on a starting pitcher. We found that out yesterday. But the good news for the Mets is, as we go forward into 2020, the contract of Yoenis Cespedes, although it was reduced a great deal, it comes off the books this year. And I think I'm having a little trouble with my video. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, we're back. How's that? We're better. Now, tell me if you can see everything now, Andrea. Thank you for your input. I don't know what happened, but we should be good to go and keep rolling on. So the Mets, we're talking about the Mets this morning. You see the backdrop behind me. You know it's Yankee time. It's Yankee Day. It's opening day. Here we go. The Mets are going to lose the contract of Yoenis Cespedes. And without Cespedes' money on the books, now they're in a position to go out and grab Springer. So with Springer in that lineup, the Mets become, I think, a much more consistent offensive team in 2021. But those are the three free agents now that remain: Realmuto, Springer, and Marcus Semien. Now, Semien, I think, could be the most intriguing of the bunch. He's the only top-line shortstop becoming a free agent this year. But next year we have Lindor coming a free agent unless he's signed long-term. So Marcus Semien, if he can put together another good year this year like he did last year, then look for Semien to be a huge free agent add this coming season in the offseason. So those are just some of the comments I want to make with the Mookie Betts signing long-term. We'll move on from there. What about the Toronto Blue Jays? Will they have a home ballpark? I was listening this morning to some information before Lenny. Every time Lenny comes on, I stop, I turn Lenny on, listen to that. Great show this morning, Lenny. I've said this before, I'll say it again. The variety and the content that you get here on the network is bar none. I put it up against anything you'll see or hear on ESPN, anything you'll hear or see on other fantasy podcasts. The variety. And Hap, I didn't wear my shirt today. Please pardon the faux pas. I want to thank you guys who are in the chat room. Andrea, Bigelow on the Prowl, Corona, Donkey Oki, Doug Boyle, Ed, Lenny, Star Dog, Taco, and we've got guests Eleonora and Vivian, whoever you are. But Toronto without a home ballpark. You know, yesterday morning I was watching, and what I heard was that they were going to go to Pittsburgh. And then the state of Pennsylvania steps in yesterday and says, you're not coming here. We're not going to take a risk for our Pennsylvania citizens who could come into contact with someone who's been somehow affected by coronavirus. So now they're not playing in Pittsburgh. Where do they go? I heard somebody say maybe they should go to play at Cooperstown. Well, if you've ever been to Cooperstown, then you know that the gaps, that's the biggest part of the ballparks. And a lot of major league ballparks have gaps in left center, right center field that may be, 400 feet, 390. You know what they are at Cooperstown? Like 310. Can you imagine the scores of games if major league teams played where the gaps are 310 and 320? Maybe like 45 to 42. So that's probably not going to happen. There was some talk earlier that they may come to Charlotte. And the only problem with going to Charlotte is not a major league field. And it's not so much the dimensions of the field, it's the other amenities that go along with a major league field. The workout areas, the locker rooms. Those things are huge with Corona still being a major factor in our society. So I think they've got to figure out a major league park to call home. Now, one school of thought was Toronto will play all of their games this year on the road. Wow. Talk about travel weary. And I've got the Blue Jays possibly a playoff team. And what I'm going to talk about next will even add fuel to that fire. But they don't have a home. And opening day for Toronto is tomorrow. So I don't know where they're going to play. We know it's not going to be Pittsburgh. Do they try to share a stadium with the Yankees or the Mets or some combination going into New York? And do we have a similar problem with the state of New York saying we're not going to allow someone from Canada to come here? I don't know. It's really a dilemma, and I don't think it was really fair to the Blue Jays for the Canadian government to say at the 12th hour or 11th hour, you can't play here. They had no backup plan. And that's why with baseball in 2020, whether it's reality, whether it's fantasy, it's great to have a backup to a backup. It's like we're playing chess this year. You got to be ready for the next move, and you got to have something to follow that up. So we'll keep our eyes and ears open to where the Blue Jays may wind up. If you're traveling and don't have a home to go settle in for 6, 7, 8 games, you're gonna, I don't care if it's 60 games, if it's 30 games, the travel itself, whether it's by bus, and a lot of it's going to be, they're gonna get tired. I mean, how many of you guys ever taken a bus trip for a week and you get back home? Aren't you kind of, yeah. So we'll see. I hope they find a home. I hope they find a home sooner than later, and we can put that aside, because the fantasy impact, if you have Blue Jays and you don't have some stability, we know Bo Bichette, we know Vladdy, and we know these guys are primed for great seasons. I read this morning, and then I heard Lenny too, that the Jays have already announced sometime like early August they're going to call up Luke Pearson. Well, wow. But it's good to know if Luke Pearson's going to come up available in late August. By then, how fantasy relevant will he even be, right? Speaking of late August and trade deadlines, one bit of information that's, I think, majorly important is MLB came out and said, we're going to try before opening day starts tonight to increase the number of playoff teams from 10 to 18. That's significant. That's over half of the major league teams that now could make the playoffs. And it takes your outliers, those teams that you thought might have a chance, Toronto, Chicago, and now it puts them clearly in a playoff mix and clearly a trade deadline very heavily pursued. I think a Yasiel Puig, who's now recovering from COVID, now becomes much more of a fantasy darling when you've got 16 teams fighting for a playoff spot. We'll see. But I think it adds more interest. It keeps the fantasy intensity, because when teams are in a playoff spot, let's face it, they're going to play more competitively. So I think if MLB can work that out. Now, the problem is, as we have seen throughout the COVID situation, we can see that there's not a lot of fast movement between MLB and the commissioner's office. That's like molasses on a 20-degree day. It just doesn't move that fast, now does it? So there's got to be something done, some incentive, and I think it could work both ways. Certainly, I think with more playoff, you're talking doubling the playoff games. The owners stand to make, and by then maybe there'll be fans in the stands. We just don't know. But the owners with television rights stand to make more of a profit. And if there's a way now to include the players in that profit share of extra games, I think the players very well buy in. I think it adds a lot of intrigue and interest to the fan bases. And so for us fantasy players, it only adds intrigue, because now players who might be tanking, what the Padres? Padres are a great example. A borderline team with some superstars on the team, the Machados. We know that Tatis is a star in waiting. So now you got a Mackenzie Gore, who, if the Padres can make the playoffs, we know if you put Gore with Lamet and Paddock, those starting pitchers, that can play. That can play in the playoffs. And so now McKenzie